back to episode 3 of Game Time Decision. I'm Micah Farmer, and this is Keegan Miller over here,
Yes,
and
sir.
we got to experience a NASCAR race in person for the first time this season as we got to go to Atlanta. Keegan, how did you enjoy that?
Dude, I'm still shaking from that finish. We just drove back from Atlanta, here now into the studio. I mean, that, what can you say that already hasn't been said? I mean, it left me speechless. I was shaking you, grabbing you at
Yes,
the
you
end.
were.
I was like, oh my God, what are we watching? I had no idea. Even when they showed the replay, I was like, I don't think Dennis Rose won. Like, I'm not sure who won, but I don't know. Like,
Well, the way those slow-mo replays are, obviously the car on the outside is going to come into the frame the latest, so you see Blaney the whole way, then suddenly Suarez's nose appears and he just takes it the last
barely, just
It was
barely.
absolute insanity. I feel like the entire last stage of this race was absolute insanity as far as battles for the lead. There was the 4 wide for the lead moment, which was
Cindric
crazy
forced it
as
wide
well.
and then took it. That was, we were in between the start finish line turn one. So when he went 4 wide, that was right in front of us. So
Yeah.
we saw that all day, not 4 wide, but even from like the second lap, we saw guys making moves to the inside right there all day going in turn one.
The slingshot
still
move
doing
to
it in
turn
turn
1
three.
was amazing too.
Oh, and then they were started to plan for it. So then they started to do the switchbacks.
Yeah.
And kind of fake them out and juke them out, and that was really cool to watch. But I mean, that race, Atlanta's won me over. I mean, I'm definitely going back to Atlanta. I love what they're doing with the new super speedway tile asphalt and the new banking, and it's awesome.
Yes, it worked really well today, and kudos to Daniel Suarez, obviously, winning this race. A guy that coming into the year we both said might be on the hot seat. Do you think he's completely erased that now?
I think so. I mean, he wins the second race of the year. He came in this season with probably more pressure on his back than any other driver. I mean, you can talk about Austin Dillon, but RCR didn't go hire a bunch of part-time guys to test the waters with other drivers. I mean, Trackhouse hired a bunch of guys probably to see how they would do in a Trackhouse car to put them in the 99.
And one of those guys is looking pretty good today, and Zane Smith almost took the lead before getting into the wall.
Yeah, he did kind of fence himself there. But Suarez was under the most pressure for any driver this season and wins the second race of the year. Started 28th, I think, in the race and ended up winning it. Came out of nowhere in the final stage and just won it.
Yeah, and you and I were both talking about the first time he was up towards the front was in the outside lane and just did not get going on the restart. And we both immediately were saying, oh, does Suarez have a good enough car to win this race? And then going into 3 and 4 on the last lap, he just hooked it up around the outside, kept his momentum, and was able to get the most speed down the front stretch and took the win by .003 of a second.
Yeah, I mean, third closest finish in NASCAR history, but I mean, going into turn three, I mean, the first move was Busch. I mean, Busch kind of moves out to the outside of Blaney, and then you have Suarez kind of swing around both of them, and I guess he just got a bad restart when he restarted on the outside earlier in the race, because he just did not have any drive in that 99.
Well, it takes so long in these cars, too, to get momentum going that if you are delayed slightly on that restart, you're probably going to be behind for maybe a lap and a half. So
Atlanta may be the most momentum heavy track on the schedule now.
I would say it is, yes.
The amount of momentum runs you need to have in Atlanta to be successful isn't crazy. And we saw cars that maybe weren't as fast drive, but just the momentum they got could carry them through the field and make past 2 or 3 guys at a time on the inside, middle, or outside, no matter where they were on the track.
Well, early in the race, it felt like no matter where a Michael McDowell or a Kyle Larson restarted, they were going to be back up in the top 5 in 10 laps because they could get through the pack so quickly.
Kyle Busch, a lap down in the final stage, had a speeding penalty on pit road, which pit road at Atlanta, I mean, you enter in turn 3, it's 90 miles an hour all the way to pit road, then it's 45 on pit road. I mean, a speeding penalty kills your day there.
Yeah.
And he made the lap back and then got a free pass and just kind of drove his way through the field like we've seen him do before, time and time again.
Yeah, and speaking of that pit road entry, there was the incident between Michael McDowell and William Byron that kind of ruined both of their days. Now, what do you think about this pit road entry? Do you think this is the best we can do with Atlanta, or do you think it could be improved to where incidents like this might not happen as much?
It's unique, and I love it for its uniqueness. I love when tracks and designers, when they design track, just have something thrown in there, like a monkey wrench, like Talladega, just something as simple as moving the start-finish line from the top of the tri-oval down the front stretch. Or, like Atlanta, just moving pit road entry all the way to before turn 3. I like uniqueness. It gives the track some character, which Atlanta had a lot of character, and they repaved it, so they kind of added some character back. And looking at the track, there's not really a great place to put it. I think that's the best they could do because it's really fast coming off turn 4 and it's really sharp. I don't see him being able to slow down and get off the track safely enough to be
Yeah.
able to pit.
And with how volatile the rear ends of these cars are, with how quickly they snap, I think there would be so many crashes coming onto pit road if you try to make it a standard pit road entry line with how quickly that transition off the banking would be.
Right, I agree completely. But I mean, I can't get enough of that finish. I mean, we saw 3 wide racing almost all day. They're packed up all day. I mean, the most boring part of the race was green flag pit stops, just wait for them to kind of form back up. But
And then everyone got a penalty, so
right, and then when they spaced back out, a car would spin just to kind of group them back up. So we saw plenty. I mean, lap 2, not even into turn 1 on lap 2, there was a wreck. Took out my
there
pick.
was.
Yeah,
Took out my driver.
yeah, took out your
Not
driver.
my pick, but my driver.
And my pick, Chase Elliott he spun 3 times today. Today was not his day.
Yeah, for those keeping count, drivers I've wanted to win races this year have made it a total of 6 laps without getting in crashes, so
Glorious 6 laps.
off to a flying start. But my pick almost came through with Kyle Busch, who ended up finishing 7 thousandths of a second behind the leader, and it wasn't even good enough for second place. So
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, just watching like Ryan Blaney's reaction, like in his post race interview, he hadn't even seen the finish, and they're interviewing him, and then you kind of see him look up at the board, and then his face lights up, and
yeah,
he just saw the finish for the first time, and he's just amazed. I mean, we all were. No one knew who won. No one knew what was going on. It was just mayhem, and I loved it.
I have to say I was at Daytona in 2016 for the super close finish between Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex, and even this Atlanta race compared to that, I felt like it was just more wild, even crazier, just because of that 3 wide and because it was all the way down through the pack and no one had any idea where anyone finished, just the craziness and the hype around this event. I think it's something that Atlanta desperately needed because there have been so many questions about, is this super speedway format really the right way to keep going for Atlanta? Did they make a mistake by getting rid of the more traditional intermediate form? And I think they proved today that when you get the right set of circumstances for it, it can definitely work and work well.
I mean, Dale Jr. said earlier that this is the hottest ticket in NASCAR, and people were kind of like, "What?" But I mean, the environment was electric. It was packed. They sold the tickets. People were there. People showed up. No one left. Obviously, it was great. I mean, I was happier than the drunk senior frogs on spring break in Cancun. But I mean, the whole place was just exploding when that happened. And I mean, yeah, super electric. And everyone who was there tonight will end up going to another Atlanta race.
Oh, for sure.
Sometime in the near future.
I know I will.
Me too. I mean, that was incredible.
Yes, for sure. Moving on from Atlanta now, next week we head out west, start the West Coast swing with Las Vegas. So, who do you have for Vegas?
I'm going Larson. That's not super surprising.
Well, the Hendrick pick worked so well for you this week.
Yeah, but Larson, I mean, he's looked better in the first 2 races this season at super speedway tracks or plate races than he probably ever has in his career, especially at back-to-back plate style races.
For sure.
So, I mean, if he's running that well at tracks he hates, then I think he's hungry this year. I mean, he looks hungry, and that's scary.
It is. For me, I was torn between 2 different Penske drivers, whether I wanted to go for Ryan Blaney or Joey Logano. Eventually, I settled on Ryan Blaney. I think the motivation from being so close at Atlanta is really going to stick with him. Penske usually goes pretty well at Vegas. They like that a lot. And as far as raw speed, Ford has looked so quick this year. I don't know if it'll carry over to a more traditional intermediate track or if this is just more of a super speedway thing. But for now, I'm going to ride with Ford. I'm going to say Blaney gets it.
A couple things. Blaney, we've seen him in these close finishes a lot, especially at Talladega. I mean, I feel like every time there's been a close finish in the last 5 years, Blaney's been 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And, I mean, him and Ryan Newman, it seems like there's 3 years in a row where him and Ryan Newman were going to win a plate race like that or wreck out at the last second trying. And then you mentioned Joey Logano, who had a pretty good day today until he thought...
One of the best cars in the field today until it got tore up when he tried to merge the gap that wasn't there.
Tried to make a block that didn't matter. I mean, he was fading back. I mean, there was no point to make the block. He made the block, and it didn't...
And I am shocked that Joey Logano made an ill-advised block, aren't you?
Yeah, super shocked. We didn't see a bad push from Brad K, though.
No, we didn't.
That was good to watch. And then Michael McDowell.
Yes.
Front row racing. I mean,
front row looks good.
He was sitting front row at Daytona. He wins the pole the next week. I mean, are we going to see Michael McDowell, dream year?
Listen, we might, and not even just Michael McDowell. The guy who led the most laps today was Todd Gilliland in the other front row car. So what you said a couple weeks ago about front row maybe taking over that Stuart Haas spot as far as Ford's development program, I think we might be seeing the fruits of that already with how good front row has looked so far.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we were sitting there before the race, and some of the first pit boxes were Gilliland and McDowell, and we were kind of joking. You said to me like, no one's ready for this front row 1-2 punch right here," and we're halfway through the race. We're sitting there, Todd Gilliland's in first, and then McDowell's in like second or third coming, and we're like, wait, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
Is this actually gonna happen? Like, it was just incredible to watch those two teams.
They both probably had two of the top 6 cars in this race as far as just speed and ability to get through the pack.
Oh yeah, it was super fun to watch. But I do want to go back to Atlanta for a second. The car spinning, we have seen that a lot with this next gen car, and even the past few years at Atlanta, we've kind of seen these cars just kind of. It's not like they get squirrely. They do, but like they get squirrely so fast that they just before they know it, they're kind of turned around. And so
I think a good way to show the problem with these cars, I don't know if you saw the in-car camera from Eric Jones from qualifying where he's sawing away at the steering wheel and the car just looks completely under control. If you just saw the out-of-car shot, you would not know anything was wrong. Then as soon as you go in the car, Eric Jones is fighting that thing like crazy. And I think with the way these new cars are built, as soon as you get to the point where the rear starts to slide, you've already lost it.
Yeah, I mean, very. There's a very thin line with these cars, and if you're slightly over that line, the car doesn't care. The car is now in control. I mean, you can save a little bit, but I mean, at these when they're going so fast these races, and when it gets a little squirrely, I mean, it's kind of just done. And NASCAR's heard the feedback from the drivers. This isn't anything new to the season, and I think they're really going to try to work on it in the off season. They've kind of made it a priority this coming off season to fix short track packages, and
Yes.
I think in doing so, they'll kind of eliminate some of those problems with the rear ends just kind of doing whatever they want sometimes.
I hope so, because I will admit it's very fun to see cars going sideways off a corner and yet still making passes. So
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw Denny Hamlin wreck 3 times tonight. The first 2 times he wrecked, even he wasn't really super heavily involved, but I mean, that second one when he got into the back of when Joe Logano went up and he got into the back of Busher, I mean, it looked like
you see that just in a vacuum, you think, oh, that's a busted radiator.
Yeah.
And he was just totally fine, kept on going, and was a leading laps after that.
Went to the charge, went to the point after that. So I mean, that was impressive to watch from Denny Hamlin's car. I mean, these cars are strong.
Yeah.
So I mean, credit to them. But and then of course he got torn up a little bit later. Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson, kind of he just got sideways again, like we saw all day. But yeah, just tough break for Larson, who had a really fast car, and Hamlin, who was running. I mean, they're really tough break for all of them, really.
Chase Briscoe, too. Chase Briscoe was running really well in this race, consistent top 5 in stage 3 until he ended up losing it.
Him and Cindric were very aggressive today, and I loved it. Whenever they got a chance, Cindric would dive down at the bottom for one to try to force it. I mean, there's a few times I thought he was over the double line trying to make a pass spare. And I mean, Cindric was the same way. As soon as they saw a window, they took it. And I think down the line, probably this season, that'll reward both those drivers.
I would watch Cindric at road courses, especially this year. When some of his first starts in Cup, he really impressed at Coda, driving the 33. And so if he has that aggression, along with pace is obviously the most important thing, but if he's able to keep that and that aggression at road courses, I would watch for him to maybe do well at those this year.
Yeah, but we do go to Vegas, start the West Coast venture. Something is missing from the West Coast swing this year. No Auto Club, not even a race in Southern California in the regular season.
Forever in our hearts.
But Auto Club, hopefully back soon. Maybe not next year, but hopefully back soon. I don't know if they have a direction. Short track's been talked about. I don't know if they have a direction of what they want to build
They're
yet.
gonna make Pocono too. They're gonna make a triangle.
Oh, please no. The Pocono doubleheader is enough.
Yeah.
The 2 weeks to spend at Pocono or 2 weeks then. We don't have to say. We'll talk about Pocono when we get to Pocono. We'll talk about Denny Hamlin's win later this year.
Let's not. I don't want to talk about a Denny Hamlin win.
He's the new Kyle Busch. I mean, he got booed today.
He
got booed more actively than any other driver, which I mean makes sense. A lot of the fans there probably seen the Netflix show and saw the same thing everyone else saw. So
it's Hamlin, Logano, and Bubba Wallace. They're probably your 3 that got the most boos walking out today. Although Wallace did have a lot of cheers with him too.
Wallace did have a lot of cheers.
Those 3 are probably the most boos.
We were surrounded by a lot of Wallace fans today.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice, and of course Chase Elliott fans. Being in the Atlanta race, hometown boy, didn't show up. I mean, he showed some driving here and there, but I mean, when you spend 3 times,
I think as soon as he got that initial damage, it because even though it doesn't look too bad outside the car, it's just you see a little bit of bare bond. You don't know with how complex these cars are now, what aero bits got damaged, if the balance is now off. So I think you can't really hold that against him too much in this.
Yeah, but we do have double the racing to watch this weekend.
Yes.
With F1 officially starting back up. Testing was this week, but no one cares about testing. Bahrain is this weekend. Super excited. It's on Saturday, and if you're in America, so we get to watch it without having to record it or wake up super early or stay super late.
I am so ready. Yeah. I watched the new season of Drive to Survive when it came out a couple days ago. Binge watched it, and I am so excited for F1 to be back. I know Red Bull dominance is probably going to continue.
It'll be.
But there are so many storylines this year. You have the last year of Carlos Sainz at Ferrari. What can he do? Can McLaren finally get off to a good start? And then the whole Aston Martin thing, will they be able to build on what they did last year, or will they kind of slide backward? The uptrend of Williams last year, James Vowles seems to be taking them in the right direction. Can they continue to climb through the midfield? And will Alpine ever figure out how to build a car?
Probably not. But it's also the last year of Hamilton with Mercedes, and he's been there for years. I mean, he's been the face of that organization since, I've been watching racing pretty much. So, I mean, I hope he gets a win just to kind of celebrate or whatever.
The Mercedes looks a lot better than it did last year, we'll say. I know it's just testing, but Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari all look right there for that second team spot. So the issue is Max Verstappen really doesn't have an off day. You're going to need something like Singapore last year where Red Bull just wildly missed for some reason. Mm-hmm. If Max does have an off day, I think any of Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, or Russell are good enough to beat a Sergio Perez, but Max just doesn't have off days, and so it's going to be really hard if that Red Bull is as dominant as it looks for another driver to get a win.
Yeah, and if testing is a test to anything, Max Verstappen's going to win again this year. Win another 17, 18, 19 races, whatever. And then Ferrari is going to continue the trend of winning the pole a lot and then doing nothing with it. So
they say that their new concept is worked on the tire wear a lot.
Not to screw themselves over? Is that their new concept?
I wish. If they can figure out
that on their garage. Yeah. Do not screw ourselves over.
But in Italian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously.
But speaking of Ferrari and results, what's your podium for this weekend? Who do you think is going to be up there?
I have Max Verstappen winning. Big shocker to the many viewers out there. I have Norris second and Perez third. So I think Red Bull gets two of their dogs in there, two of their horses, both of their horses, and then I think Norris kind of squeaks in there at second.
I also have Verstappen winning this race. I think just Max is so good, so consistent that even if somehow the Red Bull is not as good as we expect it to be, I still think Max gets it done. I think Leclerc is going to come home second. I actually have faith in this Ferrari. Testing was more promising than it's been in previous years. A lot more consistent mileage completed, which gives me hope that maybe they've figured out what they're doing. The influence of Fred Vasseur kind of getting their crap together, so to speak. And then I also have Lando Norris on the podium in third. I think that Perez might still be a little bit shaken from last year and his bad form that carried him through a lot of last season after the first few races. I think the more time you spend as Max Verstappen's teammate, if you're not on that pace, the more that's going to wear you down, the more pressure it's going to cause. And then with how good RB look so far in testing with Ricciardo and Tsunoda, there's going to be even more pressure on Perez for his seat. And I kind of think he's just going to crumble under that. So I have Norris taking that third podium spot and Perez missing out.
Yeah, I mean, first race, there's really a lot of wild cards out there, but everything will be answered this weekend, and then we can make a lot of better guesstimates moving forwards on how many races Max Verstappen will win. But yeah, super excited for Bahrain. F1 season will be underway officially, so you'll have F1 and NASCAR most weekends up until November. So
yes,
just super stoked for racing. And then kind of in the distant future, not really. We've already started spring training games.
Yes.
MLB.
The Reds are undefeated in spring training.
No one cares.
I care.
Yeah, well, you and Ellie De La Cruz.
He broke Hunter Green's window. That was
funny. That was pretty funny. Even funnier.
Pickup truck the next day.
Yeah, even funnier is see-through pants seems to be the new MLB trend.
Is this what Manfred meant by "will grow to love the fanatics"?
I guess so. Yeah, so you get to watch your favorite players even closer this year, closer than ever before.
Closer than many of you would want.
Yeah, if you're into that. So definitely a different type of.
Man, pray for the Blue Jays fans with Vladdy running the bases. Is all I've got to say.
I mean, they're not gonna be able. If it starts raining, they're gonna have to
They're gonna have to stop.
get into the clubhouse. They're
The
not
white
gonna
home
play in the rain.
pants. They're not.
Yeah, no playing in the rain this year.
No.
Yeah, spring training's underway. Big news, especially for my camp. Cody Bellinger back with the Cubs.
Yeah.
We kind of saw that coming, called it.
Yeah. As much as I didn't want it to happen as a Reds fan, kudos to you guys, I guess.
Yes, sir. A lot shorter deal than we kind of were thinking. We're kind of thinking maybe closer to a 10-year deal, $200 million. 3-year deal, $80 million. He's got an opt out after the first 2 years, so we can opt out this year or next year. I think it's $30 million the first 2 years, and then it's $20 million that third year. Who do you think won this deal? You think the Cubs won the deal? Scott Boras won the deal? Your take?
It's interesting because I think Scott Boras is now in a tough spot with his clients and how they're being viewed, and some of them not really getting signed as early or given as much money as you'd expect. These two options that you're talking about, where Bellinger can decline, I think it's almost pointless. I could see a world definitely where he opts out after year two, but after the free agency market you just went through, if you have a similar season to last year, still at that high level, why would you opt out? You just know the same thing's probably going to happen, especially if Scott Boras is still your agent.
Right.
So because of that, I think the Cubs are probably getting at least 2 years out of this, and I think they won the deal.
I think the Cubs won the deal as well. I mean, $30 million for the type of hitter we saw him last year, and you don't have him locked up long term. So if that was a fluke year, you don't have him for the next 10, 8 years.
Yeah.
You have him for 3, and maybe he struggles a bit this year and kind of finds form. Maybe he's just one of those guys who kind of swings back and forth from year to year. I don't think he will. I think what we saw last year is more mature, kind of grown up Cody Bellinger, who's not just a kid and cares about trying to see how much he can elevate the ball. I mean, we really saw him. I mean, two-strike hitting. He was the best two-strike hitter in the league, other than Luis Ariz, who won the batting title. I mean, had the best average. So it's definitely a more mature Cody Bellinger. And I know the Cubs players are really excited to have him back, which is really important. It seems the Cubs' chemistry is maybe better than the 2016 team. I think it is better than the 2016 team, which it's a lot of hope. And National League is going to be tough this year. Central may be more competitive than most people are kind of looking at. People look at the Central, kind of blow it over.
I think every team except the Pirates has a realistic chance to win it this year.
We saw a little bit from the Pirates last year, but I don't think they have enough to sustain it.
They don't have enough
162
pitching
games.
depth to be able to compete for a full season.
Right. No, I agree. But yeah, we'll get more into kind of divisional picks and playoff picks. Closer to the season, I'm excited to get those underway.
Yes.
But yeah, Bellinger back with the Cubs. Huge news for really the world of baseball because a Scott Boras agent signed, especially like a top Scott Boras agent signed. So now he's kind of a Snell, Chapman, Montgomery, and I think Bellinger was kind of the first domino to fall.
Yeah.
Within the next week, I see 3 out of those 4 guys. JD Martinez, another guy. I see most of those guys having a team.
Probably.
Blake Snell maybe a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Like adamant about making sure he gets what he wants.
Especially after that, I know we keep talking about this, but that Yankees offer he declined.
Yeah.
He seems a lot more aligned with Scott Boras' value of him as a player than a lot of these other guys, where he's a lot less willing to compromise. So I think you could see him hold out maybe even over halfway into spring training at the most.
Yeah, well, Boras has stated that he has all of his guys that aren't signed, in training camps, whether it's in Arizona or down in Florida, pitching, doing whatever, and that his guys are ready. And he's brought up, someone interviewed him, and he brought up guys in the past that signed really late that, Bryce Harper was one of those guys who signed kind of like right before spring training and came out and had a great start to the year. So he's like, don't worry about it, whatever. My guys are still my guys, and you should still pay me a lot more just because I'm Scott Boras.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but baseball season is very, very, very close. I'm excited.
Yes, for
and
sure.
Shohei Ohtani gets his first start in a Dodger uniform tomorrow.
Yes.
So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they're not the Max Verstappen of MLB, which may happen, maybe not.
If any team
shall see.
won at the same rate in the MLB that Max Verstappen wins in F1, it would break literally every record ever for a Major League Baseball season.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure, unheard of. I mean, no one's ever gonna go undefeated in baseball, but that'd be pretty close. I mean, but yeah, we have to hope that doesn't happen, especially if it's the Dodgers. I'd rather the Reds have a season like that than the
I
Dodgers.
would too.
Yeah, I bet you would. You'd rather have a lot of things go your way that don't. But that's because you are horrible at picking sports teams. Moving on. Um, some college baseball.
Yes.
I got to cover some college baseball over the weekend. Not this weekend. Over the week. Auburn baseball seems to be looking dominant, like we saw. They did lose to Virginia today, 6-4. Kind of a tough back and forth game. Virginia just slightly out hit them. Auburn's pitching, like we had thought, was kind of gonna be whatever.
Yeah.
They seem to have found their footing. They didn't really struggle a whole lot with Virginia. Virginia kind of just got the hits that Auburn didn't. They got the double with the runner scoring position.
And
you
can tolerate that a lot more than what we saw previously with just complete bullpen meltdowns. So I would rather take this and know that this lineup is probably more often than not going to be able to out hit the other lineup if our pitching is at least serviceable. So I'm not too worried right now.
Yeah, and Auburn beat Iowa, who was ranked 18, I believe, in the country. So not a bad showing for them in the Jack's Baseball Classic, which you had to have D1 baseball to watch. D1 baseball, gate locking, all college baseball fans.
We could do a whole another rant about the college football or college baseball broadcasting, but I don't think today is the day for that.
It is not. We'll wait for Omaha when you can actually watch college baseball on television. Basketball, March Madness getting closer and closer with March just 4 or 5 days away.
Auburn finally shooting threes and well. I know Georgia's not top of the SEC or near it, but 15 points for Aiden Holloway with made threes is something that Auburn desperately needed.
Yeah.
When Holloway is on, the shooting profile of this Auburn team is vastly different than when he is not, and if he can keep that up, I think this is the missing piece to send Auburn a lot deeper into the tournament than originally I thought they could go.
Well, they need him more than ever now with Jalen Williams not being in. So, yeah, like you said, if he can keep this up. I mean, we saw glimpses of this early in the season, not a full game, but like splurts here and there for a half or whatever. And we finally saw like almost a full game of a great Aiden Holloway that was talked about before the season started. But yeah, I mean, even Dylan Carwell got a 3 in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw that. The bench went nuts. I mean, when he shot him, I mean, he shot and made it. Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, good to see Dylan get a 3 right there. That was really electric for the team. They're on like a 22-9 run or something at the time against Georgia. But
those are the final points of the game as well for Auburn.
Yeah, they didn't break 100. They've gotten close a few times this year. Have broken it once. But yeah, always fun to beat Georgia no matter what the sport is.
For sure.
So, yeah, what else you got?
I think that's all I got for today.
Yeah, kind of a shorter episode. Not a whole lot going on. Just the one NASCAR race. We'll get into NFL draft coverage soon. I know you're excited.
Super excited about that.
Yeah, so that's coming up. Yeah, but other than that, just got to get prepared for F1 and baseball to come and just keep trucking with NASCAR and we'll figure it out from there.
That'll be it for this week, and next week we'll be coming to you guys virtually. We'll have a little split screen background going on as we will be on spring break.
Spring break.
Don't worry, we'll still have an episode out for you guys, so we'll see you next week.